where we dive into facing fear, learning to overcome challenges, and step into your passions and pursue your dreams. And I'm excited to be here with Anthony Ross today. He's an artist and a mentor and founder of FAES, the Fantasy Art Embodied Sanctuary, which sounds absolutely amazing. And his work sits at the intersection of creativity, healing, and personal transformation. So we'll dive into Anthony's story, the challenges that he's faced, coming up in becoming an artist and expression, and all the things that he's learned over the years. And so, Anthony, welcome. So maybe we start with the beginning and how you got into art.
Yeah, well, like most kids, I drew and had fun drawing as a kid, and it's just something I always stuck with. I was always considered one of the best in the class, and got praised for it and felt good about doing it. And I was very shy too, so it was something that I could do anywhere on my own. And I still really appreciate that aspect of it, how it's so portable, so individual and easy to access. And I was inspired by different artists, throughout being a kid, but I never really realized you could improve intentionally until about 10 years ago, when a little before that, I started to explore and realize, oh, there's people behind these movies and behind these video games, and there's artists who are designing these things that I've loved and drawn, and Mario and whatever it was. Somebody created that, and I didn't never really clicked in, like, oh, this is a profession. And even though I had people in my life who were artists, none of them were professional artists, and didn't know the industry, didn't know that kind of stuff. So it was about 10 years ago I discovered Watts Atelier, which is a school in San Diego. And the teacher, Jeff, really inspired me on the level of both his technical ability, but also how he took a spiritual element to his art and just spoke to my heart with his devotion to the art, and his openness to share everything he's learned.
Yeah, absolutely. When you hook up with people that have that you kind of mentor you, or show you a new way to look at things, it's really awesome. It sparks that creativity, that joy, and seeing things from a new perspective. And it sounds like finding that for yourself is the idea of that self-expression, or connecting with yourself. And I think that happens in multiple industries. We were talking before about the idea of how artists connect with themselves and others through art, musicians and people that make movies and tell stories. So it's all a medium, and connecting it with the idea of nature and adventure being a catalyst for self-expression and transformation, which has been my experience. But it comes in so many different forms. And I think everybody has like that unique thing that they find in the world that really resonates with them. And so, when I look at art, it's like some pieces speak to me, and growing up with an artist for a mother, and a father for an engineer, like looking at different things in the world in different ways. One person may look at something and be like, oh, that's beautiful. Another person be like, well, that's like a dot on a piece of paper, So like, how is that art almost like a reflection of the self, and it's interesting because everybody has a different perspective and a different expression. So I love that you've taken that and used it as a way for people connecting to themselves spiritually, or people connecting to the world in different ways, and also using it as a voice. So again, a lot of musicians use their instruments as a voice. It sounds like you've been able to tap into art as a way to express yourself in very powerful ways.
Yeah, I believe that the more you can really embody yourself, that that's going to apply to every medium, you know, and I have various that I really enjoy doing. From I play piano, I act, I do different kinds of movement practices, dance, qigong, different things. And it does always come back to who are you on the inside, right? And the more you know yourself, and that might take different avenues of expression, of exploration to find that. And I know it has for me, and I do funnel it back to my painting and my drawing more than other mediums, because that is my first passion. Um, but it all these pieces help me to, and all these mentors helped to give me permission in different ways, and to have the safe containers and the guidance that have have been able to facilitate my growth in myself, which then translate to how can I share whatever that is, which is sometimes a mystery, and get it on the page and express it. So, and really at that point, it's none of my business. At that point, it's okay. I did something and I put my heart into it as much as I could, and then whatever you get from it is your journey, right? And that's that can be hard to learn, because we want to, maybe, you know, we have our parts of ourselves that want to be liked or want to be validated, and that's nice, but it's also, it's like ultimately we have to do that for ourselves more than anyone can do it for us. And the artwork will have its own story once we let it go.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned about the embodiment conversation, like embodying what you're doing and then expressing that. And once you're embodied, things happen a lot more naturally, where it doesn't become so much more effort because you're you, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to be you, unless you're a version of yourself that is different than the core essence of who you are, which is like that spiritual conversation. And so that soul expression many times gets dulled through life experiences, or being told you're not good enough, or maybe even telling yourself you're not good enough. So it's lifting the veil of the truth of who you are. And sometimes having mentors that can see who you are is very powerful. You know, having that third perspective, and having a group of people that surround you and lift you up, and say the good and the bad. You know, it's not like getting positive feedback and negative, or not negative feedback, but positive and creative, constructive feedback. And I think a lot of people in this world have that like creativity in them. They have the artist, they have the actor, they have like all these different things that they want to express themselves with. You know, I used surfing as expression, or adventure, or all those different things. When I get on a wave, I express myself like in the way I move, and and I've learned from some absolutely tremendous mentors. And it's a journey, just like any martial arts too. It's like, how can you express yourself in martial arts? Or so it's a very similar type process. And many times we don't give ourselves, like, take a step back and allow ourselves to be present enough with ourselves. It's like we're always focused of like, oh, how well am I doing it? Am I compared myself to somebody else? Or look at this person. So when we remove ourselves from judgment and comparison, it's a very freeing experience. And as an artist with a blank canvas, there's really nothing to compare it to, really. Like, if you're fully present and you're showing up in that moment, in that creative expression, it's just you in whatever medium, whether it's a canvas or some sort of like clay or whatever that is. So as far as the embodiment piece, what do you think like the most embodied work of art that you've done in your career?
Well, it's hard for me to say, because I'm in it so much of the time. It's my journey of expressing it, and it varies too, because the idea like I have a lot of different fantasy ideas, and sometimes I don't know why or what they're coming from, and sometimes it's in the process or I'm almost done the piece and I start to make associations with it that I didn't know I was making, right? And I think it's a natural process, but ultimately what I feel it comes down to more and more for me is, do I look at the piece and do I feel that it's me? Right? So I recently did a portrait of my acting teacher, and it's also me that I'm looking at, even though it's her. And I'm doing a picture of Frankenstein right now of my own version. And when I'm drawing his eyes and this expression of this monster, I'm also aware that, well, that monster is me, that's inside me. And that's the honesty or the sense of ownership that is that embodiment where each person is everything, right? And the stories you have in yourself, the reason we read stories, the reason we watch movies, look at a piece of art and feel something from it, is because that's also in us. And when an artist can express themselves and capture that in whatever way, even if it's very mysterious, then there's something powerful in the connection, and we become more whole because we see, oh, there's that, I recognize myself. I recognize that piece of me that maybe I don't want to look at too much and don't want to express or acknowledge very much, but maybe the art brings it out, and that could be a healing process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The shadow work, diving into that, and the idea of being able to see yourself in the work of art, and then translating that into when you're with others and you look in somebody's eyes, you can see yourself. And oftentimes the things that you don't like about others are the very thing that you don't like about yourself. So if you can embrace that piece of yourself, then there's less like hate and less like judgment in the world, and I think that that's where there's breakdown in relationships and even war. Like if people from either side could look into each other's eyes and realize that we are all human, we have the same very similar feelings inside, then it wouldn't make sense to destroy another person. It would be acceptance, love, and I know that's challenging in a world where a lot of people are stuck up in competition and survival. So how do we move from a sense of survival to a sense of being one with everybody, which what you're in essence saying is like see yourself in others' eyes or artwork or expression, and know that you're everything. So if you're
Yeah.
destroying one thing, you're destroying a piece of yourself in the process. So that inner freedom comes with uh, inner love, loving others, and accepting yourself. And it sounds like art has been that tool in order for you to accept yourself and accept those things, maybe the shadow pieces of yourself that you might be afraid of. So like, is there anger, is there rage, is there sadness, is there like shyness, all those different things where we push it away and say, oh, that's bad, like I gotta be somebody different. It's really embracing all those pieces of you. And
And
then
also, yeah, it also goes on the other side where it's you can experience more excitement, more joy, more bliss, more gratitude, right? So as it's like a balance scale, and if you go further into the darkness and you accept and you love that aspect of yourself, then you can also experience more joy and freedom and light and power and groundedness, right?
absolutely. And can you talk a little bit about the sanctuary? the idea of the sanctuary and what that looks like?
Yeah, so it's a school community on school.com, and the idea behind it is to create fantasy art that really embodies everything we're talking about. So accessing the parts of yourself that you have disconnected from, right? It's reclaiming pieces of yourself and expressing it, and then trusting that wherever that expression leads, it's making an impact, and it is changing you in the both process of creating it, and then it's basically it's a gift to the world to create your art. And the acronym is like phase for fae, the fairy realm, and that kind of thing. So it's connecting with those energies and with your ideas and with the magical realms and the different energies that really embody that spiritual and expressive nature.
Yeah, that's super cool. And what kind of long-term impact or like the legacy, say it's like, 10 years from now or 20 years from now, and you've been dedicating yourself to this work for, for a number of years, what's happened at that point?
Well, I do have some bigger visions for different projects that would involve teams of people. That would be too much for just my hands to create. And it's also to kind of a process of really, I've had all these ideas incubating for a long time, and they've been sitting there while I've been accessing my power and my ability to speak them, right? Which is both technical art skills as well as the trust in myself, the belief in myself, that what I have matters, that it's valuable, that to overcome my perfectionism and these resistances that have been there for me, and to really create a larger portfolio, a collection, Oracle decks, different ways that I'm encapsulating these visions that have really just been a part of my psyche for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes those things, they ruminate in your mind for so long. It's like they groove patterns of like, and sometimes it's hard to get out, or there's like a filter. And I think everything that you shared about, the idea of the confidence to do it, having the voice, the self-doubt, like all these different things come up in a lot of the conversations that I have when I work with people personally, is the idea of like, am I good enough to do this? Is there enough time? Am I going to be judged? Am I safe? Thinking about especially those that have gone through challenging environments, as a youth, and, moving into a space where, self-expression and putting yourself into the world, can feel very unsafe, and actually, at times be unsafe, depending on what level of stage you're playing on. So it's like, how do you level up in a way that honors you? Like when I was getting mentored by one of my childhood surfing heroes, he was talking about how he surfed 60-foot waves. And he's like, you don't take somebody out into a 60-foot wave right away. You take them on the little bit, not so much into the main peak of the wave, into the channel. And then you slowly move into the larger and larger waves. So, and the same thing with surfing or any sport. So, as people are starting out, simply getting a message out, in a group, right? So we have Underground Warriors, which is a group of impact-driven entrepreneurs, and creating a space, for those individuals to share with a vetted group of people, and then you share in those type of groups, and then you start sharing publicly, and like, oh, that's not so bad. And then you see like, oh, this person's judging or this or that, and realizing that it's not really so much you, it's them judging themselves. And, so a lot of times we got to understand that is like, yeah, sometimes people have some really good advice and some feedback, and sometimes it's just them talking to themselves about how they don't believe in themselves. So I love that you're creating that sanctuary for people, to express themselves. And so is there like a place that they can go to get hooked up with that?
Well, the community, the sanctuary, is school.com/creative. So that is where you can find that. And otherwise, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, different platforms as When Anthony Draws.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Absolutely. And then as far as like any kind of challenges that you have for, some of the people that might be checking out the podcast today, if you could give somebody one challenge that you wish that you'd given yourself years ago, when you were a little bit younger, what would that challenge have been that would have completely changed your life?
I think the challenge I would like to give would be to either create something or simply explore, whether it's with journaling or some other expression, something that you hesitate to share, and just make it for yourself, right? So create a safe container and create something for yourself that is exposing something vulnerable in whatever way. That might be love, it might be desire, it might be grief, it might be fear, whatever it is, and create an expression of it, and then just honor that for yourself. And if you want to share it, you can, but that's not the point. It's just to embody that for yourself and use it creatively, so that you're empowering yourself more than dismissing or being disempowered by the emotional life that you're uncomfortable with.
Yeah, I think creative expression is and vulnerability can be the most terrifying thing that you do. I've done skydiving and bungee jumping and endurance racing and backpacking 3/4 of the coast to Costa Rica, all these like really extreme things, surfing in Hawaii and Pipeline, which is the most dangerous wave in the world. And literally like my biggest challenge has been being able to be vulnerable and to share all of me in the world, so it is like, it takes a lot of courage, and
Yeah.
confidence in order to take that leap of faith. So I agree with you 100%. Like taking that little step of self-expression. I love that you said that, you do it for yourself, and it doesn't matter like what the rest of the world, that's like how I actually wrote the 5 Challenges book. Is I wrote it for my kids, which was, 100% for me. And I'm like, well, now can I get it out to more people in the world to help them to gain the courage, confidence, and commitment to relentlessly pursue their dreams. And it's been one of the most rewarding things ever. So, and I've done some art, here and there growing up, and there's something about it. Like when you put that work of art up on the wall, or I've been designing my own surfboard recently, which was like a kind of creative experience and what I wanted to look like. And, I love it. And it is a divine experience when we allow ourselves to create physically, in our relationships, in our life. It's like, how much closer can we get to, the universe, God, or whatever you believe, for expression, that divine creation spark, it reminds us of how powerful we truly are.
And it's human too.
Mm-hmm.
It's divine, but it's also very human.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I agree. So anything else you want to leave everybody with before we wrap up? Or?
Well, I'll just say I'm working on designing a program that bridges humanity with creative fulfillment, and using creative fulfillment to access more of your humanity as well. And so that's just something I'm working on. So if you want to stay tuned with that, you can find me at like I said, my school community, or the When Anthony Draws on social media.
I love it. Yeah. And I have a feeling we'll be doing some stuff, together in the future. It would be cool to do like some sort of art expression night, inside of the academy, Zerkers Academy, for people, so definitely think about ways to, share that in the community, because I love what you're up to and I can certainly relate to it. And art's always been in my life for years, passed down from my parents, my mom. And and I appreciate everything you're doing. So thank you guys for checking out the Underground Wars podcast this week, and looking forward to future conversations with absolutely amazing human beings. And, so if you're looking to connect with yourself, to challenge yourself, and maybe you have something big that you want to accomplish in the world or express in the world, definitely let us know. And, you can find us at zerkers.com or on social media, John Christian. And looking forward to catching up with you guys soon. Thank you.
Thanks, John.